Hello, Wentz Joshua here again. Speak with you briefly about my experience so far during pre-service training with Peace Corps Ukraine. Please note that the opinions I express here are mine exclusively and in no way represent the um, Peace Corps Ukraine or any thoughts and wishes from the United States government. So I've been really excited to be part of Peace Corps Ukraine from the outset. I've been too busy to make updates like I was hoping to do. It's just been a whirlwind of things happening. It seems like so much has happened in a very short amount of time. Um, so just at the beginning, to go back, I packed for the 2 years, 2+ years I will spend here in country. And then it was off to Los Angeles. We stayed at a hotel room for one day for some kind of pre-departure seminar, which was largely about icebreakers, getting to know such a large group. It was only TEFL volunteers for my group with Ukraine. Because there are so many volunteers that wish to come to this country, they decided to break the education department away from the development, community development, and youth development. Those volunteers departed a week earlier and had their staging event in Seattle instead of Los Angeles. So it was just one big long day for me in Los Angeles. I had to get up at I don't know, like 4:30 East Coast time in order to catch my flight. And then was up until maybe 10 o'clock West Coast time. So nice, fun, long day at the outset. A lot of icebreakers and information about Peace Corps service, core expectations, and basically a warning that if you didn't think you were up for it, maybe don't get on the plane. Um, as far as I know, everyone got on the plane, and then the next day was just traveling, really long day at the airport and in the plane and fun stuff as always. When we arrived in Kiev, we went to a retreat before we went off towards the rest of training, which was again just a whirlwind of ideas and thoughts. More information about Peace Corps Ukraine. We met the different staff members, including the country director, met the medical officers, had to make sure that everything was up to date and they could give us the best medical attention possible. And of course, safety and security. Those are two issues that Peace Corps anywhere will take very seriously, are safety and security and health. So taking care of the volunteers is an emphasis, and it really showed at the retreat. Um, it was really just a fantastic experience. We were greeted after we eventually showed up because we were late, as things happen when you're traveling. We were greeted with a bread and salt ceremony where they gave us some bread. We dipped it in the salt as a way of welcoming to the new country. I, of course, was rather annoyingly humming the Rains of Castamere from Game of Thrones during this whole ceremony, probably upsetting the people sitting next to me, or the ones who knew what I was doing at least may have gotten a chuckle. That training, it went on for several days. I want to say 3 to 5 days. It was a while ago and a lot happened. At that training, I found out not necessarily where I would be posted in country, but I did discover that I would be going to a Russian speaking area because instead of going into the Ukrainian group, they put me in a Russian language learning group. Also there, since I had been quite diligent about doing my Duolingo Ukrainian practice before I arrived, I won a prize for getting a lot of points, I guess, on the Duolingo scoring system. I won some stickers. But of course, I then had to switch over to Russian and not start completely over, but there is not a whole lot of crossover between the two languages. There's some, but not really enough. So I started studying Russian a little bit for, I want to say now at this point, it was like 3 days maybe we were there, and not counting the first day. So it was just meeting after meeting after meeting during this first retreat. and some interviews. I met the country director, sat down with him for a few minutes, met the medical officers for a few minutes, as well as whole group meetings and small group meetings. I'm in higher education. I'll be teaching in university. So our segment, higher education, had some technical sessions related to teaching in university that the secondary educations didn't need to attend, and we didn't need to attend some of theirs. But there was still a lot of like team building, icebreaker activities, get to know one another. They fed us a lot, 3 days of food, and we didn't get a lot of free time, but that was kind of expected. And then it was off to not site, but training site, which is a city about 2.5 hours west of Kiev called Zhytomyr. It's a beautiful little city. It's got a river, like most cities in Ukraine. It's a city of about 200 to 250, maybe even 300,000 people. So it's not huge, but it's not small. It's too small to have a subway system, but big enough that you could kind of blend in and not really get to know each other. Know everyone in the community really. We tried to integrate, but with so many people, it was kind of a challenge. And as usual, I noticed that I'm rambling a little bit, maybe getting off topic. When we got to the city, we met our hosts. For me, my host was really nice young man, a little bit younger than me. So people are always talking about their host fathers. He's 8 years younger than me. So I tended to either say my host or my host brother. Very interested in practicing English. He's a computer programmer. Very fluent in English, just wanted to practice his English and help get to know some more Americans, of course, as always. Really great dude. I'm glad he's my friend, and I look forward to, of course, continuing this friendship in the future because, of course, one of the key goals of Peace Corps service is building relationships. So I'm going to keep in touch with Yuri, of course, in the future as things go forward. A lot of time here in pre-service training in the city was spent in language learning. We dedicated 4 hours every day to the language itself. And then on top of that, there was 3 hours a week for revision, some technical language like Russian to use in the classroom, as well as like scheduling language, and a lot of language. Oh, also 1 hour of individual tutoring sessions every week. So that covered the language for about the course of this whole thing. In addition, we had to go to universities and do some seminars on, how to teach in Ukraine, what it's like to work with a Ukrainian counterpart, and then some meetings to meet our counterparts, as well as we then eventually worked on doing some team teaching exercises in the classroom, which for university took a little while to get going. Because the students didn't come back until I want to say 3 weeks into our training. And then, of course, at that time, the secondary public school volunteers had already been in front of their students and practicing lessons. So we didn't necessarily get as much practice as some other volunteers, but it was much better than the year before. I was told by previous volunteers that this is the first year that they decided to split up higher ed and secondary ed so that we could actually get some hands-on practice in the classroom, which was nice. My counterpart was a lovely Ukrainian woman with a lot of teaching experience. And again, I'm happy to call her my friend, and we'll continue that relationship digitally if needs be in the future. Also set up a couple of English clubs with students and one we ran with the teachers. Just a lot of fun to have. I've been used to running English clubs from my previous teaching experience in China and Saudi Arabia to a lesser extent. So I knew a little bit about that. I've had a little bit of teaching experience, but it was still nice to get back in the classroom and work on that stuff. So honestly, a lot has happened, but I've sort of forgotten a lot of it. One big thing that we were all worried about was something called a language proficiency interview, where towards the end of pre-service training, you sit down with someone and kind of have your language tested. Um, I was, well, as much nervous as anyone else. I mean, if you know me personally, you know that I'm going to take this kind of seriously and do my best to learn on my own. And I have learned some shortcuts into language. So while I was nervous, I think I did well enough. I made sure that in addition to that extensive Russian language learning, I was also doing some self-study throughout the week, like the Duolingo I mentioned. I use a different app called Mango Languages. I have some books on Russian language, which are based on pictures, which really help cement words from short-term memory into long-term memory. I did okay. I felt I did pretty bad, but it was enough to, progress me. I ended up scoring a low intermediate according to the young lady's scoring system. So today is the final day. I will be in Jitomer and the sun is setting. My host was kind enough to give me a beautiful mug, coffee mug of Jitomer, since he knows how much I love coffee. And it's got some scenes from around the city here. We had a nice feast at his mom's house because he's a single man. Sometimes his aunt comes over to cook, and sometimes we walk over to his mom's house on the weekends, and she loves cooking for us. They've been really sweet about following my vegetarian diet. So it's really just been a great experience here in Jitomer. And if you ever come to Peace Corps Ukraine, I hope that you're lucky enough to have hosts here in Jitomer, because as far as I know, everyone I've spoken to has had nothing but a positive experience here. So best of luck with that. The next steps will be to go back, not to Kiev specifically, but near Kiev. We're going to have a conference about transitioning to service, and our university counterparts, the people we will be teaching with over the next 2 years, are going to come to that. So I imagine it's just going to be another, all day long series of meetings and team building exercises again. And then that goes on for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then 3 days. And then we take the oath of service, which you'll probably be able to see on Instagram or Facebook, both with Ukraine Peace Corps and probably the U.S. Embassy. My host is planning on coming to that unless his work interferes. So that'll be a nice opportunity to get to see him again, even after only 3 days. I'll see how he's enjoying his privacy again. And then from there, right after the oath of service, we go right to site. My site will be far in the south of the country. I'll be working at Black Sea University for the next 2 years. So I'll probably be catching a night train and be off to service. So I kind of summarized the last 2 months or so of my life in just a few short minutes here. I'm sure I left a lot of stuff out. I can just say that Jitomer has been wonderful. The Ukrainian people have been so friendly and helpful. And of course, the people that I've been working with, both in the Peace Corps group and the trainers from Ukraine, as well as my other volunteers, specifically in my Russian language cluster, as well as higher ed cluster. We've gotten to know each other very well, enough over these last few weeks, and I'm happy to call this entire community my friends. So far, I know I just got here. I'm kind of still in the honeymoon stage of culture shock, especially since I'm going to be going to a new city where it will start all over again. Like, wow, it's so amazing here, for a few weeks at least anyway. Um, it's been an amazing opportunity. I am so lucky to be a Peace Corps volunteer, and honestly, thank you. So stay tuned. In the next couple of weeks, I'll let you know how well I'm doing in transitioning to my new assignment down in the south near the Black Sea. And I expect good things from Peace Corps Ukraine. So far, it's been nothing but a positive experience. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and stay tuned for future updates.